So it is a pleasure, and we are much humbled today to be here. Today we are at Mount Elgon Culture and History Museum. It's here in Mbale, and it's one of the best, exciting, and one of the places you can have the feel of the eye. We are very much humbled as Bugisu Television to welcome you, and today we are going to look at tourism within the region, and specifically how Mount Elgon Culture and History Museum started, how the idea came on board, and what is the purpose of this initiative or idea that seems to be creating fun for our people within the region. My name is Vinicet Manana. We are going to move through, and we have our guest, Mr. Wanyina Francis, who is one of the proprietors of this cultural museum. And you're most welcome to Bugisu Television.
Thank you, Vinicet. I'm happy to become a guest on Bugisu Television.
Yes.
First of all, I must congratulate you for this initiative.
Thank you.
My name is Francis Wanyina. Boy is another one, and I'm the founder of this museum. Founder in the sense that it was an idea which of course been bothering me for a long time, not as an individual, original as a collective. It started way back in at the birth of Winzio Amasawa.
Yes.
The institution of Amasawa. There were meetings, preparations and other things, and I participated as a consultant during the formation of the inauguration of Winzio Amasawa.
Okay, which year was that?
That was 2020. It was born 2010, but 2012 there were still activities taking place to see what must be put in place.
Of course, to have an institution like Bamasawa Cultural Institution,
yes,
that means it needs a combined effort.
A combined effort.
And what defines it?
Yes.
It means it has to have
a background.
A background of it.
What are the motivating factors? So the reason why I had to enter into this idea is I was one of the consultants, but not only that, I was also requested to write the first strategic plan for the institution.
Okay.
The strategic plan, the only one actually which still exists now.
To date?
Yes,
for
because
how many years
it has
was
never
it?
been updated. It was never implemented, and therefore it remains a draft of sorts.
But who is supposed to implement it?
No, the institution. We are not discussing about the institution's works, but I'm giving you the historical background of this one here.
Okay.
So in the strategic plan, one of the things emphasized was to have a cultural center of sorts, where some of the things that are in your culture can be shown. And you will be proud to tell anybody visiting Mbale that the first place to reach is the museum, because that is where you will see us in totality, and then you can now see us individuals. Now, this is the summary of what Bamasawa should look like, and then you can go to break points and go to different sub-counts and see what they do, other things. So the idea remained on paper. So in 2015, when I was leaving work,
yes,
I thought it was time to do something. I'm one of the people who believe that it's not good to keep cursing in darkness. I believe that when there is a lot of things not moving the proper way, the best way is not just to curse, but light a small candle. And I kept telling people, look, I want to light a small candle. I'm not going to be party to cursing. That's why I lit a candle in 2015. I went to the Uganda Museum and asked them, what are the requirements for starting a museum?
Yes.
And where can I get it? It's not an income generating activity, incidentally. So you have to have a resource to help you to put things together.
Okay.
They said they didn't have the funds, but they encouraged me to go ahead and, if I can, mobilize resources, start a museum, and put there things which actually depict the local culture of the people in the local area. We chose to call it cultural because the setting is ordinarily, of course, cultural.
Okay.
But also we said, look, what are we going to show in culture? It might be limited. We are actually giving a story of a people. And here, one of the first people we are talking about are Bamasawa. Okay. Who are they? where they live.
What are their beliefs?
What they believe in, what they do, what they eat, what they drink.
What are their celebrations?
What are celebrations? What are their music? How do they entertain each other? How do they fight? What instrument do they use for war? So we look at the different aspects of the community, put it together, and get a story around it. People normally want to listen to the story.
That's why that's how we come with the name History Museum.
History, culture, and history.
Okay.
You can't do culture without the history, because
you must have the history.
The history must be there.
Tell the culture.
And then where was it? Where is it now? What might it be in the future? And you know, that's the most interesting part, because where we are now is much different from what it was in the 50s, in the 60s, or even earlier days. It is improving to an extent that it is even going up to obliterate in the future. We are going to have more people circumcised in the hospitals than in the ordinary dances we have been watching. And because of other dynamics which are happening, in 20 years' time, some of the practices you see now
may not be there.
Okay. Because, you know, we are moving from analog. Everything, and digital is almost taking over everything. We are now talking about scientific things. Now, scientific circumcision might become the norm of the day when we are avoiding crowds because of social distancing and other things. I'm entering this COVID interference because it definitely is going to have an impact on circumcision.
Okay.
And first of all, HIV had an impact, a big one. In the past, and the circumciser will be running from place looking for Msinda to circumcise. Talk about riddles of Bamasab, and it could even be competitive. You make it enjoyable.
You create competitions.
Yes, you make competitions for riddles. So people who come and those who answer. We people who remember some of the very old things. It make it, you know, you want to become interactive. We moving in that direction, so that you don't only see with your eyes, but you also use your brain. When you come here, there are riddles you are going to tackle. There are questions you are going to have to answer, whatever you ask or answer, and you get prizes. But the idea is that you put life into something, which ordinarily would be just left to rot and maybe disappear. You know, it takes 2 years for circumcision to take place here. So it means this other year, people go to sleep. But he said, no, a museum creates continuity. Continuity and development and other things. Of course, it will create employment. It will also create more knowledge and even more in terms of creating peace. Peace, you know, culture, the war starts from the mind of the people. Culture can also create conflict. So this is the purpose of a museum is actually to fight some of those negatives, but also increase on the positives, so that to make people really know that they have a part to play in terms of development.
Now, the museum has a number of collections. Yes. There are collections of materials in the museum. Can you maybe explain to us most of these collections? Because I know someone of the 20th century and then the 21st century, they look to be apart. But how can we bring all these people together through this museum? What are the collection materials within here?
The collection, first of all, we looked at the different aspects of the human life in this region. I told you, how does a man live? When is he born? Of course, there are not very many articles about what they use. You know, we have twins. Twins normally have ceremonies.
We have those rituals.
And there are rituals which also are accompanied by instruments which are used. We don't have them here, but in our documentation, we have them. Then we go to how they live in terms of food and security, food security and the food. They eat, they cultivate. They are not just pickers of fruits, no. They cultivate their food. So we say, okay, when they've picked the food, they store it. Once they store it, how do they add value? They don't just eat grains. They grind it into a millet, into a powder before they mingle it. What else goes with that one? So we have a food section, we have accommodation. So that's how you saw those huts. This is the accommodation. This man lives in this house and he rests here, and maybe he entertains his visitors like this, and he rears his animals like this. You know, we have the economic aspect, the social aspect, the health aspect. We will be having actually a lot of plants here, hubs, where he used to have his medicine. In other words, he had his hospital.
The medical cures.
The medical cures, yes. All those actually add up to the totality of this man when he was sitting in his compound. In other words, when he wakes up, he has to have a shed above his head. He has enemies, so he has weapons which he uses for his protection. You will find a spear all the time there, and what we call arrows, bows and arrows. Those were for two purposes, either for war or for hunting. You needed certain weapons to use for hunting. So when storing what you are going to eat tomorrow, you had to have storage. But you didn't have to path, you have to have water. How do you store the water? You have to have herbs. Where do you get them, and how do you mix them? Because there were specialties, but at least they become part of the what makes the community live.
We have art within this museum.
Yes.
What is the essence of having all this within one stop center?
In a museum?
Yes.
Yeah, it's because you are saying, look, somebody should not come and say, I'm going 10 miles away to see a potter, I'm going 10 miles to see a man who is sewing, 10 miles away to go and see somebody who does metal work. We have these jingles, for example, for Mbale.
Yes.
Let me give you that. We had 4 industries in Bugisu. Industry, rudimentary for that matter. Okay. One is pottery, Hubumba. This one for making pots, even plates, out of clay.
Yes.
It is called pottery. It's an industry. There are fellows who specialize in that.
Has it been exhausted anyway?
Yes. Now, that's pottery. Now we had this wood carving also.
Okay.
Yeah, they were carving some
where
of
we get Luluelo,
Shiwiri, and things like that. Even sometimes in Singalabanda, they used to have some sandals made out of wood. That's an industry.
But how heavy were they if you put on them?
Well, they made it thin, and so that you know, but it was wood. Yeah, so that one, Bubetsi is wood covers. Okay. That's the second industry after pottery. Then we had the metal one, where they melted stones and got beads. They are not from Ujinja. They were made by these fellows hammering some of these things. So they were metal people who specialize in producing metal things, spears, arrows, and those arrows you saw. The jingles. There were other jingles which are tied in for animals. We are collecting some of them.
Call them Mayimba.
Yeah, that one is for to make sure an animal does not get lost, because it
must give you that alert.
It gives the alert.
Yes.
That was an industry in metal. I've told you about wood industry, the copper industry, but they also sewing. That is now an industry. You see the 4 industries?
Yes.
Yeah. So now, if you have to have a museum and you are talking about the totality of Masaba, you have to have those things represented here. Then you have go to his foods. What was he eating? Alia kamatore, alia bulo busima. He had millet. Millet was a very common flour. I think maize came later, but millet was his tradition. Millet and sorghum.
Those were the traditional
Those
foods.
were the traditional things here.
Okay.
Cassava, I think, was also there. And so, but then he was not just
even
eating
millet. They used to make marwa out of millet.
Yes, marwa. Millet produces both yeast for marwa, which marwa was made out of this flour, which is not leavened yet.
Not like the latest where we get it out of maize. I saw something. I think was it 2016 when we had the Mbale Cultural Parade and Festival within Mbale. That's when I had to see some of these.
The original things. Yeah, they were purely naked, very little covering, and you know, you do not fear. Just like people in the Garden of Eden, only discovered that they were naked when they have eaten the fruit. But before that, you look at each other. But no, it's ordinary. A human being with his private parts dangling, and other thing, women with a little cover. And it was normal. But you see, with now interaction with the other communities who address, we now began hiding ourselves, and now, of course, we have now embraced this one. We cannot go back there, but at least that's where we were, naked. Okay. Stark naked.
We've seen some of the pictures here in drawing, but how do we tell it out?
Kadodi is actually one of the youngest. Kadodi, for purposes of history, is a creation that happened around in the 50s actually. In the 50s, Kadodi was introduced and it became so popular, it has overtaken everything else. Otherwise, people so enjoyed there drums, which were, there are fellows who specialize in those drumming. Every activity had a different way of drum. For example, Sonja has different drums. We had in Mbale, which also different drums. We had what they call, there is another drum which is called, I forget, used for, done for removing bad luck and other things. Shikongo. Shikongo is also a drum, which is a special dance for Bamasaba when they are trying to remove bad luck and other things.
Okay.
Then we but now, of course, modern days when these pieces are now being done, people began modernizing and adding on other things which were not originally there. You know, the way we dress now is adding color, which has nothing to do with culture, but just color. You will find handkerchiefs, ties, and all those things. But the original ones are the jingles. Those ones are actually what made the noise to accompany the dances of the Bamasaba. It is 100 years later, somebody say, hey, Bamasaba used to have something called, maybe circumcision will not be there in the form we have it now. And I told you in 20 years' time it will be completely different. 20 years, not many years. But what about 100 years? So this one tells the story of this group of community of people. Each one of them actually is trying to store it so that for future generations to say, look, we look back, you go to the British Museum, it goes back to the centuries when it began to having the kings for the first time. They show the stories of how they evolvement of mankind and up to the point where you are now. It is good for historical purposes, for memory. Sometimes, hey, this is what, today I was reading even names. How does a name come? Today I was reading a story about how the Mercedes car, the Mercedes name became popular. You know, and somebody stressing how it began and why it rose up and eventually it became a very popular name. Mercedes, when you talk about Mercedes, you are talking about a classic car. But it started on a very selfish interest of a man, a name of his daughter and something like that. It was very interesting. So the same thing, we will say this is how circumcision began. We can document properly how Kadodi began and how Kadodi has now been overtaken. It's no longer a Masaba thing. Everybody is dancing Kadodi. You know,
because I've seen even different ethnic
yes, they have now taken it over because we didn't have it branded and therefore it's not protected.
Can we have it back?
I don't know whether somebody will be, of course the cultural institution will be the one to do that. But it takes a lot of initiative and yes, initiative and seriousness. Say, look, this is something, we own it and then we protect it and maybe make it what your brand or something like that. But now for the time being, Kadodi has now, it's universal, it's almost Ugandan and it has gone to even beyond our borders.
As we wind up, in your opinion, have we done what is supposed to market this region?
We haven't. This is just the beginning. You see, when you have an idea, you need to share it with other people. Either they buy it or they don't buy it. But when they eventually buy it, as a community now, we would have been more serious in saying, look, let's not just post about culture. Culture must be packaged. A visitor will want to see something which is in a package so that he can carry it away, or maybe either in his head or on his camera or in a booklet of some of sort, packaging. So you don't just say we have a culture, rich culture. How rich is it? It must be documented, it must be packaged, it must have a story. There must be a story to market what you are packaging, and it must have a background. It must have, therefore, you situate it. It has to have a situation. So this is the only way that a community can be proud that yes, we are marketing our culture. Because otherwise people will come and pick whatever aspect they want and take it away. Somebody has already picked Kadodi and it's gone. You may not recover it. They will not only pick the knife because it's still painful, but they will pick other aspects which will become attractive and they can own them.
Should we in the future have hope that this region, Bugisu region, should be the next tourism potential?
Bugisu region has potential for being a tourist destination, particularly culture. There is no other culture which is dynamic like Bugisu. I'm telling the truth. In this region, other people have small dances for around marriages, around function, but not as dynamic as this one of Bugisu. The problem is, normally we let it sleep for 1 year, then we wake up the following year, because nobody has packed it to make it a continuous process. So that even if the circumcision year is not on, but the activities which are depicting that part of the culture continue. Things about Bamasaba, they are marrying. They don't only marry in 1 year of circumcision, they marry all the years. People are dying, and the deaths has got a story about it, and how we bury and how twins are being born all the time. So they don't only the problem is that Mbale has dominated what defines the Bugisu.
Okay.
But these other things have been relegated and even forgotten. But now, this is the time now, when we have a museum like this one, it's not an individual museum, it should be a community museum, which everybody is proud to say, yes, this is what defines us. And you bring your visitors, if you cannot show them on a circumcision here, you say, look, this is how it looks like. We had in anticipation to have a group of dancers, so that not only be pictures, but on specific days, we would be having dances depicting some of those different aspects of the Masaba culture. In this ground here, that's the plans we have.
Okay.
Yes, and we have actually, if you came earlier, I would have shown you some of the pictures on my laptop. When we entertained a group here, they wanted to go to see here there was a group called Rotarians. In 2018, they came to Mbale to have a big conference in here, about 300 people. They went to Mutoto, they could not see anything. Somebody whispered them that there is a museum. At that time, it was much smaller than here. And they came here. We entertained them. And they were fascinated by what they saw. Real action, and you can touch what you know, and you can even ask the dancer what he's doing and things like that. So we want an active museum. When we call about culture, it's not a sleeping museum which goes to bed when the circumcision is not there and only wakes up when people are running around. No, these things are supposed to be here, like you saw, and some of them in drawing, some of them in physical, some of them, because we cannot replicate them, we carve them, you know, and we want to have as many articles as we possibly can for purposes of keeping the story alive. The story of Vamasava and their how they live, where they live, and how they interact with each other and other communities.
Thank you very much to all our viewers. I hope the discussion continues, and we shall have more of this in our upcoming episodes, and we shall all make sure we deliver all the necessary that pertains to tourism within the region. It has been me, Vinicate Manana, and then Mr. Wanyina. Thank you very much for joining us in discussion. I hope you will be there for us in the coming discussions.
Thank you, Mr. Manana, for coming and for choosing us to be on this particular program. We invite you to come even more times so we can talk about specific times, more details and other things. But I'm happy that you came. I'm happy that we are adding value to your program and that we can talk. But now we haven't talked about tourism a lot because it is one of our other topic which we might cover in future.
Yeah.
How do we get tourism in this region?
Okay.
Not only by the culture, but by very many other things. We really need to approach it in a more serious and professional manner. We have the ideas. All we need is to get a movement, develop a movement, more people thinking about it and adding more value. Because definitely, other regions are selling what we call natural animals. We ate all the animals in Mount Elgon, but we have other things that make tourism. We have stories, we have features, heritage. All those can be packaged and we can shout a lot about tourism, and definitely shall make sense.
Okay. More of this, we shall be continuing with the discussion. I hope we shall come once again and talk about within the region and how we can exploit all some of these features, because Mount Elgon is here, has not been effectively exploited.
Not at all.
So we expect Bugisu region should be the next tourism potential. Thank you very much.